and welcome back to Sonic Heroes on the Microsoft Xbox. I'm one well sheep yet again.
Tails, how much time's left?
We've got until sunset!
Tails, Knuckles, give it all you got! Full speed ahead!
Okay!
Got it!
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Rail Canyon, and as you can probably guess, we are going to be grinding on rails during the course of this zone throughout its entirety. And rail grinding is a great deal improved from Sonic Adventure 2. Now, instead of balancing, we don't have to balance in the slightest. We can just push down the X button in order to grind faster and faster and faster, and that's all there is to it. Which some people may not like, some people may prefer. I personally prefer the fact that you don't have to worry about balancing so much. But balancing is still in the grinding mechanics, so you can balance in order to go faster. So, you know, if you want to go faster on the grind rails, you can either mash the X button like a madman in order to completely continue flipping and gain acceleration, or you can try and balance on the rails. Although I do find the balancing on the rails to not really be as effective as they should be, because whenever I'm balancing, for some reason I just lose all speed whenever I'm bothering. So for the most part, I just ignore that entirely, and I just continue holding the X button down to go faster and faster and faster, you know, ladies and gentlemen. But yes, this is around the point where the game itself is actually going to start growing in difficulty a slight bit. This is where the game's going to be a bit harder to play from this point onwards. And honestly, it's still a fairly simple game. Like, anyone can probably get through this title without much effort. But, you know, it's around this point where the difficulty's going to start increasing, you know, ladies and gentlemen. Which actually brings me into a point I wanted to bring up way at the start of the playthrough, but I basically got sidetracked with other things. Basically, all of the teams that you get to play as, they don't really serve to be much different in terms of level design. They're mainly difficulty selectors. For example, we're playing as Team Sonic, who is the typical normal main guys you get to play as, and these guys are considered basically the normal difficulty of the game. Next playthrough we're going to be doing after Team Sonic will be Team Dark. The Team Dark playthrough is essentially the hard mode of the game, you know, ladies and gentlemen. And I don't mind that as like a I don't mind that in terms of there being a difficulty select with each character selection, but the problem is, the way they sort of locked off all the content of the game means you have to beat the game as all 4 teams, and I don't like to do that. I honestly think that if you had to beat the game as one team and get the Chaos Emeralds as one team, and not have to beat the game as all 4 teams, then honestly, I wouldn't have any complaints about this game whatsoever. But the problem is, because it forces you to beat the game as 4 teams to unlock everything, it forces you to play through the game over and over and over again to get the final story. You know, I don't like it. It's a bit of a pain in the ass. What can I tell you, ladies and gentlemen? This game's grinding mechanics also allow you to swap between rails just by holding left and right and pushing the jump button. And honestly, I would say be quite careful whenever you are going onto these rails, whenever you are swapping between rail to rail to rail, because it can be a slight pain in the ass, you know, ladies and gentlemen, because it is a little bit glitchy. Like, from time to time, I try to switch between rails, and Sonic will decide to involuntarily jerk off and fly off into a bottomless pit, you know. So sometimes the rail switching doesn't really work the way I like, which is a bit... It's not the best, but, you know, apart from that one issue, rail grinding works a charm, and I have nothing really to complain about. By the way, if you look at the top right of the screen, you can actually see a Team Blast energy gauge sort of dealio, and I sort of briefly mentioned this in the previous part about Team Blast, but basically, as we play through the levels, as we collect rings, as we destroy bandits and what have you, that gauge will increase and go higher up and higher up and higher up. And basically, once the gauge hits maximum, once it hits full, you can press the white button on the Xbox controller, and you will be able to perform a Team Blast. Every single team has their own unique Team Blast, and this essentially serves as a screen nuke. You get to use this Team Blast, and enemies will all die. By the way, that's a bit of a dick move. Wait in that one spot for a few seconds, otherwise you will be clipped by trains. This game does have its fair share of dick level design moments, but you know, it's not that bad for the most part. But yeah, the Team Blast ability, it's definitely a fantastic power. I do love me my screen nukes. I do love the ability to decimate every single enemy in the nearby area, you know, folks. And it certainly satisfies my gotta kill everything urge, you know, ladies and gentlemen. But because the Team Blast gauge is basically a gauge, because you don't get many Team Blasts really to utilize, I usually find myself pretty restrictive with them. Although, as I stated in the previous part, you can manipulate the gauge by using tails, using your flying character by pushing the Y button and the X button at the exact same time. It will cause the gauge to charge up extremely rapidly. And for the most part, I'm going to be mainly using this off-screen for the most part in upcoming storylines to get through boss fights quicker, because, truth be told, I'm not going to show off the boss fights a second time, because basically every single character, every single storyline of this game replays the same levels, replays the same boss fights, and the levels themselves are slightly different, so I'm going to be showing them off, but the boss fights do not change in the slightest, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm going to be cutting out every boss fight outside of Sonic's storyline. So, I figured I might as well do that, see if I can get the playthrough running a bit smoother later down the line, folks, because, like I said previously, this is a challenging one. This is one of those games that's really challenging to record.
Creepy around here.
It's because we're getting closer to the center.
I guess we're heading in the right direction.
Anyway, we're getting closer and closer and closer to Dr. Eggman's base, and you can clearly tell because you got to see the resistance you're going to come up against with loads of bandits and whatnot. They are going to be a bit greater in number, and honestly, one thing this game did introduce that a lot of people aren't too fond of, and I'm generally not too fussed on, but I prefer bandits personally, are these guys. These are the Egg Pawns. And they are basically making up all of Eggman's forces in this one, folks. And a lot of people I know really do not like these Egg Pawn Badnik enemy mook things. And honestly, I don't mind them, but I do prefer the traditional robot Badniks, roboticized animals. And I wish they brought those back, but yeah, this game does away with those and replaces them all with Egg Pawns. I don't know why they decided to replace all of them with Egg Pawns. Maybe because it would have been... maybe it was cheaper and easier to do. I have no idea. But, a lot of people really don't like that, and I don't mind it too much, folks. Although it is a bit of a shame, because one of my favourite things in Sonic games was just seeing the type of, what types of animal creatures, robots... Basically, one of my favourite things in the series was just finding different enemies, different robots, and seeing what Eggman came up with. And because at this point in the series onwards, for the most part, Eggman does away with the traditional Badniks, it's kind of depressing because that aspect of the Sonic series is taken away from me, and it's a shame. In fact, it's not even until like Sonic Colors or Sonic Generations until we really truly get Badniks back in full capacity, which is a shame. Because I love Badniks. I don't know why they got rid of them. In fact, everyone loved Badniks. They were universally loved. I don't know why. Maybe budget reasons. I'm going to assume budget reasons is the reason why they got rid of Badniks, but maybe they didn't want to pay artists and stuff to draw them up or something. I have no idea. That's just my assumption, and I'm probably gonna just stick to it. What can I tell ya? What can I tell ya, indeed? But anyway, we're gonna actually come up against switch puzzles from this point onwards now, ladies and gentlemen. From time to time, we'll start coming up to puzzles where we need to swap out to different formations in order to hit 3 or so switches at once. And, honestly, they're not really difficult puzzles in the slightest. It's just a matter of finding the switches and standing on them as each character. But, they do add a little bit of something to the game, which I do like, And some people aren't too fussed by them. I don't mind them. They exist. They're a thing. There's nothing much more to say. But hey, who likes cannons? Well, I do, but I don't think anyone likes to be shot out of cannons. But, well, unless you're a circus performer, because now we're going to go flying through the air. Whenever you're flying through the air, you just move left and right using the left and right analog stick, and basically collect as many of these balloons as physically possible. Now, my big problem with these cannonball sequences is they can glitch up. How do I mean by that? Well, I mean sometimes whenever you're flying through the air, you will just stop involuntarily for absolutely no goddamn reason, and it will probably die because Sonic or Co just decided to freeze in the middle of the air and go, "Ooh, what's this down here? This looks like a fancy shiny thing in the bottomless pit." And they'll basically fall and plummet to their deaths, you know, ladies and gentlemen. So, yeah, sometimes those areas where you get shot out of cannons can glitch up. Sometimes they can be a bit of a pain in the ass. I'm personally not too fond of them, but you know, and that's the only reason why I'm not fond of them. Otherwise, they're a neat set piece. I would like them if it weren't for the fact the game is really, really, really glitchy at points. But I don't know. Also, from time to time, we're also going to find panels and whatnot in the floor. You can use Knuckles' slam dunk powers in order to break those, and those actually debuted in the previous stage. Actually, I should bring up where we had to use Knuckles to break glass floors. There's the same sort of mechanics to it. You just basically dive bomb enemies into the floor, bada bing, bada boom, and your pathway to progress further will open up. What can I tells ya? What can I tells ya, indeed? But yeah, the main goal with this stage in particular is just to go through each of these main trains and destroy them entirely by getting to the end of the train and punching the big fuck me light on the other end. And we are actually going to be introduced to a brand new mechanic, folks. This here is the bobsled. Now, we have seen the bobsled we have seen this bobsled briefly in the very first stage of the game. But now this is around the proper time where the bobsled really kicks in. And basically what you need to do is you need to move left and right, press the A button to jump, and you need to jump over obstacles like lasers and whatnot in your path, and just basically avoid crashing, you know, ladies and gentlemen. These are basically on-rail sequences for the most part, and all you really need to worry about is not crashing. All you need to worry about is dodging the obstacles. And when you reach this point in particular, I just advise moving left so you can clearly see any lasers coming up so you can jump over them, because if you get hit when you're on the bobsled, you will lose one of your characters. I think the first one to go is Sonic, so you start going slower. Then you lose Knuckles, which loses your ability to steer. Then you will lose Tails, and if you lose Tails, that's no good. At least I think that's the order you lose the characters in. I could be wrong. I know there's a specific order you lose the characters in, but I digress. Anyway, what you just saw over there was Tails' dummy ring bombs. Tails and all of the characters in this game actually do have their own unique abilities whenever they are solo, whenever they aren't along with their teammates. Basically, Tails has the ability to throw ring bombs. There's very few chances in the game that you're actually going to get these characters playing solo, so I figured I'd show that off while I had the chance. But, yeah, bada bing, bada boom, that is it for this zone. Hails to the yeah, ladies and gentlemen. Ah, I get the glitch with the cannon didn't happen. Maybe that happens in the later storyline then. I'm positive that happened here, but I must have been wrong. Oh well, no matter. It's time to take down Dr. Eggman's next battle, and one thing that's kind of depressing is the next fight we're going to do with Dr. Eggman, well, it's kind of a repeat boss in some ways. Which I'll get into when we get into it. But basically, if you remember the first boss, it's basically an extension of the original boss fight we played. But it's time for Chaos Emerald number 4, and this is usually, in Sonic games, Chaos Emerald number 4 is usually the case where the difficulty of the Chaos Emerald starts to spike. But, I managed to get this one within a few seconds. I got a little lucky with this, because usually this is the one that gives me the most trouble. Surprisingly, the Chaos Emerald that gave me the most shit in this game was Chaos Emerald number 5, and I think loads of people universally agree that Chaos Emerald 5 was one of the most pain in the ass to grab, but I digress.
Sonic, look!
That thing's loaded with Eggman's weapons.
Eggman, you're finished!
Ready all cannons! Open fire!
It's now time to take down the Egg Albatross! I was gonna go with an epic voice then, but my voice cracked at the last second. Don't you just hate when that happens? But yeah, basically this is the Egg Albatross. For the most part, when you get into this boss fight, you're going to want to run to the left or right sides of the arena and try and pick up as many of these power cells as possible in order to level up your characters. Why? Because if you level up your characters, you are going to inflict more damage. And as many people should know, more damage is better because, well, you can do more damage, you know, folks. And one thing that's kind of interesting is whenever you do level up your characters, whenever you do get a higher level, basically if you're playing as Sonic, for every level up you gain an extra additional hit point of damage you can perform onto an enemy. For example, if I'm level 1, then I will do 2 hits of damage whenever I jump into someone. If I'm level 2, I'll do 3 hits of damage. And if I'm level 4, there is no level 4. Actually, I think that's the way anyway. I'm not entirely sure. I can't really tell. But I'm positive you do more damage. That's basically what I'm trying to get at. Yeah, you do. You obviously do more damage. I'm annihilating him. But basically, for this point in the boss fight, all you need to do is hit the wings, dodge the NG spear, not NG spears, the NG rings that he shoots out, and just whack his blimp. When the first part of it gets destroyed, go up to the propeller and repeatedly homing attack the propeller until the propeller itself falls off. And that's basically all the boss fight amounts to. It's just running into the right areas and homing attack the right areas, and that is all there is to it. Once you get to the final phase of the boss fight, it's just a repeat of the first boss of the game. The only difference is Eggman doesn't stop now, so we do need to keep up with him and just jumping to him whenever possible. And this part of the boss fight is a little bit tricky because the homing attack doesn't really work as it should. I always find it stops homing in onto Eggman at the worst possible moment, so don't really bother with the homing attack to take this guy out. I just advise going up to him as quick as possible and just jumping into his body, classic old school Sonic the Hedgehog style. Or using a Team Blast whenever he's on low health, because this can absolutely decimate him. Can't remember how much damage Team Blast does. I think it does like 10 or 15 damage, but it's something ridiculous like that.
You'll pay for this!
You know what, Eggman? I severely doubt that. But there we are, ladies and gentlemen. With that is it for this part. So thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed. Don't be sheepish, people. And when we return next time, we'll be entering the mysterious Frog Forest. So that'll be interesting. So thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed. Don't be sheepish. I'll catch you all then. Bye!
Once again, you fools have been tricked.
It's a fate?
From these canyons, watch as I conquer the world with my air fleet. And this time, you can't stop me.
Drat, a trap to stall for time.
Sonic!
It's not an Eggman robot. Sonic! Knuckles! Wait for me!
All life form data successfully copied.